Welcome to the Rural Futures Institute at the University of Nebraska. I'm Chuck Schroeder. I'm Executive Director of the Institute, and this is our weekly look at interesting people who are having an impact on rural. With me today are two pretty darn interesting folks. Staceys is an instructor at UNL's College of Architecture in the interior design area, and joining us is Kenzie Klein, a student at the College of Architecture from COZED. So Stacy and Kenzie, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Okay, Stacy, you gave your students a very interesting challenge that led to an interaction with the Rural Futures Institute. And we've been having a lot of fun over the last few months. So we were pretty intrigued when you asked us to make a presentation to your students in preparation for this project that is designed to, if I can read it, investigate the creative class and discover what relationship and opportunities exist with this demographic and rural areas, particularly in Nebraska. I thought that was cool. So tell us what sparked the idea and what you hope to get out of it.
Absolutely. So our teaching approach really used to be typology based. In traditional interior design education, you do a residential project, then you do a hospitality project and a retail project. And that's really a great way to learn some of the fundamentals. But as we prepare our students to become 21st century leaders who can solve really complex problems between people and space, we decided to take a kind of different approach with the advanced studios. So we really decided to take more of an issue-based approach. And we've done projects like this in the past where we look at topics like food in the city and look at what relationships exist there, what opportunities are there, how can we as interior designers solve really complex problems. And so really it's just, the strategy is allowing students to think really critically about something and come up with their own unique real and modern ways of solving problems through using space. So this year we decided to do rural Nebraska and the creative class and looking at all the opportunities that exist. And rural Nebraska has a ton of underutilized space. So allowing our students to really looking at this problem and seeing how we can impact communities. So we were hoping that this would allow them to use design research, which is where we wanted to partner with you. I didn't want them relying based on stereotypes or what they think they know about rural Nebraska.
Sure.
So we wanted them to create an informed point of view with their research groups and use that to engage them in an individual kind of proactive role. And we had 26 students who came up with 26 really unique solutions to this problem.
Well, for us, it was fascinating because we believe that solving problems in rural areas and building thriving rural communities means crossing a lot of disciplines and a lot of interest areas, bringing resources together to solve these complex problems. And it was really fun to engage with you and your students on this. So, Kenzie, you were on the receiving end of this challenge,
That I was.
and you took it up in earnest. You're a COZED Nebraska girl. I want you to tell our audience a little bit, number one, about you, where you came from, and kind of your family that led you in this direction, and what you're preparing for career-wise.
Okay, so again, like Chuck said, I'm from COZED. My dad is a construction contractor kind of guy, and then my mom's high school special education teacher, and she's always been very crafty, so kind of their interests together kind of shaped me into this interior design realm. For my project, I based it out of COZED, and then I did a youth development space kind of mixed with a community element, so just a really good space for the community to come in and for youth to really develop those skills that they're not always exposed to. It's something that I was never exposed to, at least in my time at COZED. Yeah.
Well, in the building you chose, if I can add this, Kenzie's told me a really great story that when she was growing up, she used to practice hitting softballs indoors in the building.
We had softball practice upstairs in the building that I utilized for my space. It was awfully and nasty. Oh, it was gross. There was carpet everywhere. It was bad.
It's a great example of an underutilized
space for sure. Yeah.
But you come from this community where the creative arts are
huge.
very much a part of its history. And that just intrigued me as I saw your project unfold.
And that was something I really wanted to incorporate in my project too, was just kind of providing a space for that art to get displayed and utilized, or potentially bringing in different art exhibits to really develop that art love, I guess.
Sure.
It's in small town Nebraska, or
Yeah.
that's not really in central Nebraska in general, I guess. So, yeah.
Well, I love the spirit of that. Okay, so Stacy, I think it's important for our audience to understand that you have not just been a denizen of the ivory tower through the course of your career. You spent 4 years at Clark Enison Partners, a big design firm that's worked on big corporate projects. You've worked in a smaller firm, actually with a lot of focus on rural healthcare facilities. Tell us a little bit about your life and career and what led you to now this really important teaching role where you're taking really a rather unique approach.
Absolutely. So first off, I'm a Nebraska native. I grew up here. I'm from here. Went to UNL, and I actually now teach in the program that I graduated from, which if you would have told me that when I graduated, I would have not believed you. But I was really lucky to have fantastic mentors along the way who gave me a really hopeful vision for what the profession of interior design is truly capable of and what we're capable of doing as designers. So yeah, like you said, my experience at the Clark Enison Partners was fantastic and taught me a lot about working in a multidisciplinary firm. You know, we had all of the different services in-house, and really I learned a lot about narrative in architecture and telling a story with space. Then my experience at Visions in Architecture was a very small, very focused on rural healthcare approach. And there, I really gained an appreciation for evidence-based design. And you know, through the curriculum now, we're trying to really integrate a lot of design research into it. So, you know, one of my favorite stories actually from that experience is we had a client in rural Nebraska who had a problem with patient falls in their hospital. And through interior design changes only, we were able to reduce their patient falls by 80%.
Wow.
And you know, that's just really, those kind of stories tell shows the power and the transformative power of interior design. And that's what I love sharing with the students. So when I was at that small firm, I actually kind of fell into teaching. I was substituting, one of my friends was teaching intro to design, was gonna have a baby. So I was like, yeah, this sounds like fun. I can do it. Yeah. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with helping the students craft their own story of what interior design really is. A lot of them and their families and their peers don't understand the profession. They think we're picking out pillows, and you know, accessorizing is a very, very small portion of what we do. But it's so great. It's so great to help them tell their story and to teach through the stories of my professional experience. You know,
Sure.
If I see people disengaged in a lecture, I'll say, here's a time in the real world when this actually was applicable, you know, and so that becomes really rewarding. And really, I just love watching them grow. So seeing them come in from a freshman to seeing the changes they make as a sophomore and a junior and a senior as they graduate, it's so great. It's just so rewarding to see their creative confidence grow and their ability to solve really complex problems and their ability to present. It's just the best.
Well, I just have to say, speaking of your students, and I want to talk about that just a little bit, because from that first day when we presented and Caitlin and I collaborated on that engagement, and we didn't know what to expect, and I thought it was very possible that we would have students that would say, "Oh, rural." You know, and which just did not happen. They were engaged, they asked great questions, and I've now had the opportunity on 3 occasions to engage with your students and provide them some feedback and get to know them a little bit and enjoy dreaming with them about what these projects could do for a rural community. So Kenzie and Stacy, I'd like both of you to talk a little bit about those 26 students in that class, because they're very diverse. They come from global perspectives in many cases, and you know, and even as we talk often here about crossing the rural-urban divide, you have clearly urban-based students there, very engaged in how to make a thriving rural community work. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the students in that class.
Yeah, no, so I mean, we have 26 really diverse people from small towns like me up to way bigger cities, Chicago areas. So I mean, it's interesting to kind of see how everybody takes a different approach on their different projects that they have and how their backgrounds and like ideas all play into that. Yeah, we've got some non-traditional students like you spoke about, so it's really cool just to see how everybody's background really plays into everything.
Yeah, I love seeing the diversity in their solutions and where they decided to cite their solutions. So in the beginning phases, we said, here's your broad topics to research, and it was kind of fun to see their individual strengths come through and what types and places that they sought out for these projects. So we're having students use everything from abandoned churches to, underutilized Quonsets.
Yes, and I love the Quonset projects. We saw some of those. So
yeah, it's just a really great class, and it's so fun to see all the wide variety of solutions that they proposed, and we were even able to think about it a little bit from the business aspect. So some of our students are very business minded, and we talked about what's the value proposition? Why are people going to go here? How are you going to market this? Could it exist in real life? Could this really come to fruition, be profitable, all of that stuff? So it's a very cohesive approach, and it's fun to see their individual strengths.
Okay, so you have at least one international student.
Yes.
Whose project, actually the first time that I saw it was in these final reviews.
Yes,
That brought quite an interesting perspective to what a rural community attracting artists might really look like.
Absolutely.
It made me want to go. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, listen, each time I sat through a review of these projects, I just couldn't help but think about the impact that these projects could have on potentially thriving rural communities in today's world. It wasn't a matter of trying to slip back to some bygone era. It really was responsive to interests in today's world, and I thought that was fun. Two things that we know about creativity, and I during my time in Oklahoma, I had a chance to be face-to-face with Richard Florida, who's done some of the seminal research around the creative class. And two things that he said are, number one, creativity is an unlimited resource that is constantly renewed and improved by education and by the interaction of human beings. And I thought that was important. And second, in thinking about these projects, he said, smart, talented people are attracted to a place where there are other smart, talented people. So listen, what's next for these projects? Are there communities that have some interest in taking them up? Do the students have some ideas about actually going and presenting to city council or the smart, creative people in a community? What's the plan?
Absolutely. Well, the students are really in charge of telling their own story. So a lot of them are starting off telling that through their Instagram accounts, right? It's a very accessible resource.
Sure.
You can look up hashtag UNL architecture, hashtag UNL interior design to see some of those as they kind of make it publish worthy, some of their results. And the other thing is, I've encouraged a lot of the students that did very site-specific research, I've encouraged them to reach back out and share their results. If they've called the town librarian, if they've called, if they've surveyed people and they have their email address, to share their results and start that communication. Because we know a lot of these projects would take a significant capital investment to see. However, they can really start the conversation. And that's what I think is so exciting is, people can, there's one student who is going to take her project back to the hometown that she grew up in and post it in her dad's auto store, and just really start the conversation that, look, we have space, we can do some exciting things with it.
And to start to attract that creative class and different people to come in and experience rural Nebraska itself and hopefully fall in love with it. So.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. So
well, I was pleased that you didn't say to your students, we begin with, okay, there are limited resources and it may be hard to raise this capital. Because quite honestly, we tell ourselves that myth sometimes, and I think about a COZED.
Mhm.
You have people who have invested back in your
Oh, yeah.
community in making change. And we, in fact, when you look at the 6 factors that we think describe a thriving rural community, one of those is a willingness to invest in ourselves. And there are communities that are doing that. So I think some of those projects may have more potential traction than even the students think they
Oh,
do
absolutely.
if folks in the community who are willing to make those investments would say, here's a little risk that we'd be willing to take. So I hope that happens.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I really do. Well, listen, to both of you, we often say at the Rural Futures Institute that thriving, high-touch, high-tech rural communities, which is our big, hairy, audacious goal, is not a one-size-fits-all proposition.
Right.
It really requires thinking creatively around the unique assets in a community and then encouraging, empowering future-focused leaders to jump on those opportunities, take the risk, make the investment to make something happen. So I just think you've done something really special with this class, and I hope through the Rural Futures Institute we can continue to help telling that story, encouraging our audience that may be interested in some of these projects to be in touch. We would be happy to be that conduit if that is necessary. But anyway, anything else either of you would like to add today?
No, I think this was just such a great opportunity. Thank you for all your resources and coming to help our students. It really broadened their minds to what interior design can do in rural Nebraska, and I think that's super exciting.
Great fun.
Yeah.
So Kenzie, so what are you going to do with your life?
Ooh, so I'll actually be returning to hometown area after college, hopefully starting my own small interior design firm, maybe partnering with my dad and doing some custom homes or something. I'd love to incorporate after this project kind of that rural development side.
Sure.
It's really sparked a lot of my interest. So yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens.
We're going to be cheering for you.
Thank you.
This is Well, listen, folks, I want you to stay in touch with the Rural Futures Institute through our website, through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those tools. And we're going to be back next week meeting more real people, talking about real places that demonstrate thriving rural communities are a legitimate best choice for worthwhile living. Thanks for joining us.